All eyes will be on the virtual delivery of the Supplementary Budget by Finance Minister Tito Mboweni this afternoon. Investors and stakeholders will be looking to see how South Africa plans to rein in a growing budget deficit in the wake of a sharp drop in tax revenue and plans to stimulate the economy. Now, Statistics South Africa is also expected to publish the consumer price and core inflation data for April. But to give us a sense of how the markets are looking ahead of this budget, we are joined by Makwe Masilela, Chief Investment Officer and Founder at Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. Just take us through some of the early moves on the markets this morning ahead of that hotly anticipated supplementary budget.
Good morning to you. The market so far, most of the issues when it comes to the budget have been factored into asset prices. Remember, there's been a leak. Remember, there's been instances where the finance minister also shared with us his presentation, also when he was presenting to Netleg. So the fact that we know that our deficit will move from 6.8 to almost 14%, for the fact that we know that our debt level should go to up 100%. And remember, at some point, he warned us the very same night when the Reserve Governor warned us that we are at risk of losing our sovereign status, or we might be heading for a sovereign crisis, and we might need to go to the likes of IMF if we don't make sure that we cut spending, if we don't make sure that we take serious measures to try to improve our economy. So all I'm saying is the market are waiting for something that they don't know. But the fortunate thing is that for the fact that we know most of that, it also helps you when it comes to the downside side of things, that we don't even expect the downside surprises as well. But yes, the proof of the pudding will be in the eating, and we'll wait for the actual numbers. But I think it will always go back to whatever they promise us, are they going to be able to implement this time around? Because we know we've got an issue when it comes to the implementation part of things.
Now, Mr. Masilela, just on that point of the buoyancy of markets, what would make the markets buoyant from the speech today?
That's if maybe he tells us we get something very convincing when it comes to the measures to grow the economy, because at the end of the day, there's no way you can grow your economy by cutting spending, but you need to start spending where you are not like more of consumption, but spending into the likes of increasing your economic growth. And we also expect him to continue to be adamant when it comes to the public wage bill, which is just too high, that he promised that he's going to cut, and we know there's a resistance when it comes to that. But it's also very interesting that the very same public sectors, that the ones when they are in trouble, they're looking for money, they want to touch their pension fund and say we need to dip into pension funds, and they're talking here public servants pension funds. So it will also be very interesting to see how they balance the two.
And then, in terms of the expectations from Tito Mboweni's emergency COVID-19 budget today, what would you like to see?
We would like to see that as much as we need to go and borrow some of the money, but we need to see what is it that they'll be doing to improve their efficiency. Because we're talking over 50 billion that goes to wasteful expenditure. That's the kind of money that could be helping us. Remember, their job as a government is to create an environment where investors will come in and invest, and also to create the necessary jobs. So we want to see what is it they themselves as a government, and government here we're talking local, provincial and national, because their colleagues, those people, that what is it that they'll be doing this time around, which is different. Because when it comes to the numbers, there's nothing much that they can do. They don't have much room, and we already know that they need to borrow plus minus almost 80 billion or so, and the institutions that they'll be borrowing from, we know about them. And anyway, in their February budget, they indicated that they might have to consider to go to the likes of the IMF and the World Bank. So it's not a new story, and that was even before the COVID-19.
Mr. Makwe, Mr. Makwe Masilela, I just want to wrap up this conversation by also taking a look at another, story that obviously is set to be published. We've seen that Statistics South Africa is expected to publish the consumer price and core inflation data for the month of April. What are we likely to see from this data?
We expected to move from the 4.1% that we've seen, because we've seen that we had some high oil prices, hence we had some petrol price increase, and that's also the month where we saw a weaker rand. So we expected to go more than 4.1%, but just still to be under the 4.5%, which is the midpoint, and it's very encouraging for the Reserve Bank to see inflation expectations anchored around 4.5%.
All right.